and welcome to our college football bowl preview show. Matt will be joining us in just a moment.
I told you to take the over on all these bowl games, Santa. Come on, Santa, just take the over on the games. Oh, sorry, I gotta go. Trust me.
My kids think I actually talk to Santa, so that's pretty funny. They're not watching now, though. I'm Brant Parsons. That's Matt Murschel. It is a holiday edition, and the holiday that we are celebrating is bowl season. 40 games in 15 days. It is a college
time of the year, isn't
football smorgasbord. It starts on Saturday at 2 p.m. It finishes up on January 2nd as far as the 40, and then you have the national title game that comes later on January 11th. On today's show, we're not talking about all 40. We can't do that. But we are going to talk about a lot. Talk about the bowls that are in Orlando, 3 of them here. We're going to talk about bowls that involve state teams. We're going to talk about those playoffs. We're also going to look at the New Year's Six Bowl, which come after the playoffs, but the playoffs are more important, so they're actually at the end of the show.
Hey, New Year's Eve, where else are you going to want to be is in front of the TV watching college football playoffs.
That's to convince my family, because I don't know that they're real thrilled about me watching football.
I may be there at the Orange Bowl wearing a tuxedo just to kind of get in the spirit.
And I would like to thank Matt for my holiday gift. I look very dapper. Is that a good word, dapper? Let's jump into it with the Orlando Bowls. They start on December 19th, 7 p.m. The Cure Bowl, the first edition of the Cure Bowl. San Jose State and their 5-7 record come to Orlando to play Georgia State, playing in their first ever bowl game. Georgia State coming into this year, just their 6th year of playing football. 1-23 the last 2 years. They started the year 2-6. They won the final 4 games to go 6-6 to get into this bowl game. Head coach Trent Miles doing a good job there with Georgia State. Nick Arbuckle is their passing attack leader. They actually have a pretty exciting offense. 26 touchdowns thrown this year, over 4,000 yards passing. Penny Hart is their freshman of the year in the Sun Belt receiving leader. And then on San Jose State side, they have Kenny Potter, who also is pretty good with a 68.5% completion rate. And he's rushed for 6 touchdowns. So while this game may not look good on paper when you say you have a 5-7 team and a 6-6 team, San Jose State does bring a little bit of offensive firepower. Georgia State, a fun offense that maybe people haven't seen. And my little interesting fact, San Jose State has won 3 consecutive bowl games. 1990, 2006, 2012, the last 3 they were in. But this gets it kicked off Saturday at the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, it really does. This is a game, again, like you said, maybe on paper this isn't so much the game that everyone wants to tune in and watch. But I still think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I don't see this game being a defensive battle. I think there's going to be a lot of points up and down. You mentioned Nick Arbuckle doing a good job putting up a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns as well. I think this is a couple good stories here. You look at the Georgia State side of things, as we mentioned, again, struggling the first couple of years, really a program that's in its infancy, moving forward. They have an opportunity to go to a bowl game. A lot of these kids have gone through the last couple of years, those losing seasons, only having 1 win, as you mentioned, the last 2 seasons. I'm sure for them, getting to a bowl game is so rewarding. It's something these kids they haven't had a chance to do, so they'll be able to do that as well. And San Jose State, here you are at 5-7. You're not even thinking you're going to go to a bowl game, and then you find out you are because of the APR situation with the NCAA. It's kind of a little bit of a reward, pays off for the fact that your players who came before you did a good job in the classroom. So I think this will be a good game. I think there'll be a lot of points scored, and I encourage fans to come out and watch it.
And what we do each week, we make picks. We're going to make picks on these bowl games. But interesting, if you think about this Georgia State team, 3-29 over a 2.5+ season spell there, win 4 straight games, got into this bowl by beating their rival, Georgia Southern. Just a monster turnaround from them. Do they continue their win streak, or does San Jose State take the reward of getting a bowl game they weren't expecting and get their 4th straight bowl win?
Well, I think I'm going to go with Georgia State on this one, and the reason I'm going to do is because of geography. I think you look at the fact that Georgia State's going to be a lot closer to they have an opportunity to come down here. They don't have to travel across the country like San Jose State. It's really a short week. You think about it. A lot of these schools have to have finals, so these kids are really kind of focused on doing their finals and going to practice. There's only both teams actually get here on Wednesday. They have 1 day of practice essentially, and then they got Friday, and then the bowl game. So I'm going to take Georgia State just because of proximity, and I think that'll probably be a close game, but there'll be a lot of points put up.
Yeah, I'm going with Georgia State in this one. Just the bowl means something to the program. It means something to the coach. Just the whole message of the bowl. So I'm going Georgia State in this one. They're going to finish the year 7-6. Not bad.
And that's a great, when you talk about when you're just starting a program, the program's only been around for so long. For them to get that opportunity, to get 7 wins, what a job that Trent Miles will be able to do. I mean, that's something that really keeps the program moving forward, especially in a conference like the Sun Belt, where every year you never know. You can always have an opportunity to win.
People complain about the number of bowls all the time. I mean, I complain when I'm doing bowl projections.
Yeah, I still think there's
trying to get teams in, but then you look and you see, well, Georgia State, this means so much. Then if there were 39 bowls, they would not be playing in a bowl game. Or 38, San Jose State, 5-7, but these kids, they still get rewarded with a bowl. It means a lot to them. It means a lot to the programs to be able to get the extra practices in.
Yeah,
and
that's
key.
key.
And the 2 teams that are going to be here, they're going to want to be here, and they're going to be playing all out in it.
And that's key, I think, for a lot of these schools, especially schools that aren't from the state. You come to Florida, you get the extra practices, you get the experience, you get to go to the attractions. It's something that rewards these players. But also for the coaches, it's a chance to get your brand out there in a fertile recruiting area like Florida. You get to come down here and say, listen, hey, San Jose State, this is what we do. We're right there. Georgia State, we're right here. We're up the road. Come on, come join us. So it's a really good opportunity for both these programs.
There's another big game that is taking place in Orlando, the Russell Athletic Bowl, North Carolina versus Baylor. This is on December 29th, 5:30 start at Citrus Bowl on ESPN. Of course, you know all about North Carolina. Marquise Williams, almost 3,700 total yards this season, 32 total touchdowns. These 2 teams, North Carolina and Baylor, first and second in yards per play. They both average over 7.25 yards per play. Baylor will start sophomore quarterback Chris Johnson. So that's their 3rd string quarterback in this game. He did start Baylor.
And that's not a certainty now, because I spoke with Art Browse earlier this week. It said Jarrett Stidham wasn't going to play, but then I read yesterday that apparently he's maybe kind of said, well, we'll wait and see how it goes. So
as of right now, there's
a little bit of gamesmanship going on.
They're saying Chris Johnson will start. They're keeping an eye on Stidham. If he can recover in time to be able to play, they're certainly going to go with.
My gut is he probably isn't going to play. I think they're probably going to let him, recover and then, bring in their 3rd string quarterback.
And as Johnson, he started the final 2 games. He was knocked out of the game against Texas with a concussion, but he is returning for this game. Those were both losses for Baylor. These are 2 teams that didn't expect to be here. One, Baylor, they thought they would be playing at least in the playoff, if not a New Year's Six Bowl. North Carolina, a surprise team to us, maybe not to them, played well against Clemson, made the ACC title game. Marquise Williams finally has the defense to go along with his talent there. Gene Chizik, an amazing job turning around the defensive side of North Carolina. We knew they could score points, but coming into this year, it was stopping people from scoring points. They're not a great defense, but they're a much better defense. But there's still going to be a lot of points scored in this one. Yeah,
I think this is, again, going to be a lot of points. I think Chris Johnson, as we mentioned, if he starts, which he probably will start this week, he's in that game. I think that's an opportunity for him, to kind of get better. I know he's kind of pushed into that situation. I asked our Browse on Monday, have you ever been through a situation where you've lost 3 quarterbacks, at some point in the season? He said no, and I hope never to have to go through it again. Obviously, it's something that you don't want to do as a head coach. His thing, when I ask him, what do you need to do to win this game? What do you need to do to get back on track? Because this program, this is how good Baylor has been the last couple of years. They haven't lost back-to-back games since 2012. So really, this is an opportunity for them to kind of get back. He told me, listen, we've got to cut down the mistakes. They had 15 turnovers in the month of November alone. They had 25 total as a team. That's the highest amount of turnovers that they've had under Art Browse. So, again, if they can just kind of get back to what they've been doing before, taking care of the football, getting their offense on track, which they've been able to do. They've got Corey Coleman, who's the first, won the Blitnikoff this year as the top wide receiver. That's the first one in their program's history. They need to get him the ball. He's the guy that really makes things happen. If they can do that, there's going to be a lot of points scored, and this is a game that's probably going to be one of the more entertaining games to watch here in Orlando.
Yeah, we have a spot of the show where we pick our other bowls. Maybe that we're looking forward to that we want to talk about. But if this wasn't in Orlando, this would have been the one I would have picked.
Yeah, because this is going to be, like I said, there's going to be opportunities to see. And I think North Carolina is in that position right now where they came back. This is a great year for them. If Gene Chizik decides to stay, if there's been some talk, maybe there are other jobs might open up. If he's there, again, Marquise Williams is a senior. He's gone. But again, this team's got a lot of pieces coming back next year, so they could possibly be in the hunt again next year.
Who's your pick, North Carolina or Baylor?
I'm going to go with North Carolina just because I think Baylor's been really banged up. You know, I mean, you look at what happened the last couple of years. They lost to a Texas team. That was a really bad loss for them. But again, when you lose your third-string quarterback, and they were forced to basically take a wide receiver and throw them into, you know, the quarterback position, I think, to me, honestly, North Carolina is playing some of the best football. I know they lost to Clemson, but that was still a very good game. I like North Carolina in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you again. I'm taking North Carolina. I believe North Carolina is a top-notch team this year. Baylor, some question marks. I think the way they came out against Texas, I got to wonder a little bit about their spirit. Come out, they go down 20-0. They did fight back and nearly come back into it. But so I'm going North Carolina. I just think they're just too much. Marquise Williams playing well, and Baylor with the questions at quarterback. So we talked about the Cure Bowl, lots of points. Talked about the Russell, lots of points. The Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. Take the under. New Year's Day, 1 p.m., Michigan and Florida. This game may not be exciting on the scoreboard, but fans are excited. Second fastest sellout. Last two times these teams met at the Citrus Bowl. Fast sellout in Citrus Bowl history. They come into this game, Michigan quarterback Jake Ruddock, a turnover-prone toward the end of the season, which may help Florida in that respect. Florida comes in with a great defense. Michigan comes in with a great defense. You look at Jabril Peppers, Joe Bolden, linebacker, Chris Wormley. Just Michigan's defense is maybe not as heralded as Florida, but it's a pretty good one. We know how bad Florida's offense has been the second half of the season. Michigan's offense sputtered toward the end. I believe that this game will be a close game, and it's going to come down to the mistakes because the defenses are so good. It's going to be which one can come up and almost be the offensive side. It's the defense that makes the best plays, I think, that wins this game.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about defenses, you talked about Michigan. They have a really good defense, but their defensive coordinator, DJ Durkin, has gone now. He won't be at this bowl game. He's actually taking the head coaching job at Maryland. So that kind of gives them, someone has to step up and fill that slot, which they're going to do. I think when you look at this team, I think Florida has heard every last 3 or 4 weeks, they've heard about how bad the offense has been. They've heard about they're not scoring enough points. That game against Alabama in the SEC championship, they were close. They were in that game for the first half really. And if they'd had a competent offense, I think they might have been
any offense,
they might have been able to do something better. So again, when they go into this game, they're going to have to shake things up a little bit. Maybe throw some plays out there they're not used to throwing. I know we've talked about that several times, but again, this is a bowl game. This is a chance for these guys to get their 11th win. This is a chance for Florida, some of their players to have some fun, send the seniors out on a good note. I think this is going to be a good game. I think, as you mentioned, a really great crowd. I think the last time we saw a crowd like that maybe was Florida State, Notre Dame, in the Russell several years ago. So a good crowd. I think this is going to be a good game. I agree with you. It's going to be close. It's going to be a defensive battle. I'm going to take Michigan in this game. And I know Florida fans, I'm sorry. It's just the offense hasn't looked cohesive the last 3 or 4 weeks. And after watching that game, at the SEC championship, I just don't see where they're going to get the points unless they do something a little different.
And you bring up that SEC championship, and I know Florida fans are still probably feeling it. If they had any sort of offense, they could have taken advantage of opportunities in the first half, and they didn't. If they get those opportunities against Michigan, will they take advantage of them? Michigan, I think, hit kind of a wall. Florida's offense hit a wall. I think Florida wins this game over Michigan just because the defense just makes 1 or 2 more plays. Jake Ruddock is a guy that can be a little bit sloppy with the ball. If they can make the turnovers, that secondary of Florida can make it happen. I think that's the difference. It's close, but I'm going to give the turnover battle to Florida. I'm going to give the Gator battle to Florida, game battle to Florida.
And I'm going to throw this out with Michigan. Last time Jim Harbaugh coached a bowl team here in the state of Florida, Stanford, and they won the Orange Bowl. So that was a big game for them, big win. So he knows how to win on the road, obviously, and I'm sure he wants to get the opportunity. This, by the way, is a huge recruiting opportunity for both these two teams. I know Jim McElwain and Jim Harbaugh have been on the road the last couple of weeks recruiting really hard. Florida's got a lot of talent coming in next year.
Last time they played each other in this bowl game, Lloyd Clark carried off the field. It was his final.
Tim Tebow was in that game.
And Tim Tebow was the Heisman Trophy winner in that game.
That's right.
It
so
was
there you go.
4th loss for the Gators that year, 5th for the Gators that year? That wasn't a good year. You won the Heisman with a lot of losses that year. Anyway. Well, we're going to get into the other state bowls, Florida State, Miami, USF, but before we get to those, I wanted to pick out a bowl that we were looking forward to that we weren't going to necessarily talk about. There are 40 bowls. There's a lot in state, and I mean, if you look at them, we're talking more than 10 bowls here, but a game that you're looking forward to that we weren't going to talk about, but you wanted a chance to talk about, for a moment, and you pick the Alamo Bowl with Oregon and TCU.
Yeah, we talk about a lot of points. You talk about a lot of offense. It's going to be this game, I think. You look at Trayvon Boykin, who was hurt the second half of the season. We talked about Baylor earlier. Baylor and TCU were supposed to be the two teams that were going to save the Big 12. They were going to help the Big 12 get into the college football playoff. Didn't turn out the way because of injuries. I think Boykin will be back 100%. You look at this team, they score a lot of points. They managed to put up a lot of yards. And on the flip side, you look at an Oregon team which does the same sort of thing. Yes, their offensive coordinator, Scott Frost, is gone and is now down the road here at UCF, but they're still going to have a high-powered offense. You look at what they're going to do with Vernon Adams at quarterback. He's a guy that has really kind of helped the last 3 or 4 weeks for this team. Really helped get Oregon back on, bounce back for a team that looked like they were kind of in disarray thanks to those injuries and everything. And then Royce Freeman, you're talking about running backs. Royce Freeman at Oregon is going to do an amazing job. To me, this is a game you want to watch because it's just going to be fun and entertaining, and I guarantee you'll probably see lots of points and lots of plays.
And this is the final bowl of the 40 bowls. It's January 2nd.
Yes.
It's late at night, but you stay up to watch this one because it's going to be a fun one.
It's like that one last bite of a good sandwich that you don't think you're too full, but no, you got to have it.
It's not a bad way to go out. Gary Patterson calls it a resume game. My bowl pick is the Outback Bowl, Northwestern and Tennessee on New Year's Day, an hour before the Citrus Bowl. And you look at these two teams, and you have Northwestern knocked off Stanford 16-6 in the opener. The only team to hold Stanford, I think, under 30 points all year.
Yeah.
Northwestern defense. They have a good running offense, Northwestern. And you look at Tennessee and you think about what could have been, and you realize this is a Tennessee team that was up on Oklahoma in the second half, could not hold the lead, was up on Florida in the second half, could not hold a lead. These are two programs, I think, both on the way up. Northwestern looking to complete a storybook season, a record season, I guess is what you could call it for them. They just keep setting marks throughout this year. And Tennessee looking to become that program, building themselves up, a team I was high on heading into the year. So both of them in this game. I think it's an interesting matchup. It's that Big Ten SEC matchup, and it'll be that rushing attack from Northwestern against Tennessee. And I'm going with Northwestern if I had to make a pick in this game. But I think that Outback game may not get all the attention because it's Northwestern and Tennessee, but I think there's a lot to be shown in that moving forward, even in college football, for those two programs.
Yeah, I agree with you because I think Northwestern, again, you talk about where they are in the Big Ten. Luckily, they're situated in that West division. They don't have to play against Ohio State and Michigan State as much. They're not in that conference or in that division. Again, they've done a great job bouncing back. A couple of years, it was last year, the year before, they only had 5-win season. That was really kind of a blip on their radar screen. You look at Butch Jones at Tennessee. This was a Tennessee program that many people thought was going to be easily a top 15, was going to compete for the SEC East, was probably going to be in the SEC championship game. They couldn't finish games. We saw that against Florida. We saw that time and time again against Oklahoma. If Butch Jones could get this team to finish some games, I think this would have been a different team. He just got a raise. He just got a big people kind of are scratching their heads on that one. Got a big raise. They return a lot of talent next year with the SEC East kind of being wide open with whether Florida is there as well. This is a big game for Tennessee to take that step to get ready for next year.
The talent is there. A win here,
yes, the talent is there.
Springboards them, I think, into almost a favorite position in the SEC East going forward. 3 other state teams that we want to talk about. We'll get to Florida State and USF. Let's start off with the Sun Bowl. Miami heading out to El Paso to play Washington State. This is on Boxing Day for you non-Brits. That's December 26th. It is at 2 p.m. It's on CBS. Last bowl that Wazoo won was in 2003. Miami has lost 5 straight bowls, so this one will end one of those streaks. Luke Falk is back practicing. He was concussed. He won't have his leading receiver, though. Gabe Marks is out of this game, but Falk, one of the top players, one of the top quarterbacks this year, numbers-wise. And he also has an All-American left tackle, Joe Dahl, who's supposed to be back from injury also. So that's really kind of the key for Washington State in that game. Canes finished 4-1 under Larry Scott. They hired Mark Richt. He's been hanging around practices. He's not coaching this game. Washington State likes to get pressure on the quarterback. They don't have a great defense, but if they had a strength, it's putting pressure on the QB, which will put pressure on Miami's offensive line. These are two programs. This is Miami trying to rebound, again, looking forward into next season. Washington State, really a surprise year for us, but the offense has been so fun to watch. I think that gives Miami some concern because Miami's defense has not done well against high-powered offenses this year.
Yeah, and that's something you talk about, surprise. Mike Leach comes into that Washington State program, really kind of was never able for the first couple of years to get them where he wanted to be. People expected that air raid offense to come in and he would be putting up tons of points. I think they did that quarterback-wise, but I think they just never had a defense. I think this year they're playing a lot better. They've got a quarterback in Luke Falk. I mean, again, they're coming out there and they can put up a lot of points. They've been games and shootouts. They've been involved in that as well. So this is a big chance, a big opportunity for them to make a statement. But on the flip side, I look at Miami. Larry Scott does a great job, as you mentioned, coming in. He knows he's going to have to hand the reins over to Mark Richt at the end of the year. I think the players would love to give him a bowl win to kind of send him off, so to speak, to show maybe Mark Richt what they're able to do as well. There maybe are some players who are thinking in their mind, we're playing for spots next year because they want to show their new coach, listen, I can be the guy as well. So if I'm Miami, you want to control the ball. If you're Brad Kaya, you want to make sure that you continue to, get those important first downs, convert third downs. That's something they've struggled with. You need to continue to move the ball down the field. I think one of the ways that Miami had success this year was to get the ball downfield, take advantage of those long plays. I think that's where they can hope to do this. This game could be a shootout. I mean, really, if it gets down to it. But if you had to pick a team in this one, I mean, I think Miami will take the emotional, wanting to kind of send Coach Scott out with a win, and I think they'll get the win there.
And I'm going to take Washington State on this, but I do believe that if Brad Kaya is given any amount of time, he'll be able to go deep on Washington State. And if he's able to do that, it'll be a fun game. I don't see Miami stopping Washington State, though.
I don't think
it's going to come down to that
Miami
offensive line because Washington State's
points.
going to score. I'm taking the Cougars in this one. Miami Beach Bowl takes place on December 21st at 2:30 p.m., and it hosts USF and Western Kentucky. Last year's game, Miami Beach Bowl,
Willie Taggart Bowl.
The Willie Taggart Bowl. Last year's Miami Beach Bowl was a lot of fun, and I think this one also could be. It's a mixture of styles. Bulls offense is all on the ground. Marlon Mack, quarterback Quentin Flowers. They've combined for over 2,000 rushing yards, 18 touchdowns. Hilltoppers offense, it's all about Brandon Doty and over 4,500 passing yards, 45 touchdowns. Taywon Taylor, his top target. USF will try to slow this game down. Western Kentucky will try to speed this game up. Whoever is successful in doing that, I think, is the difference maker in this one.
Yeah, well, one of the things that when Willie Taggart took over, when Willie Taggart started this season, he made changes on his coaching staff, and he brought in Tom Allen, a former linebackers coach at Ole Miss. And what they did was really put in this attacking defense and really built to face teams with the spread offense, because he felt like that's what colleges are going toward. That's what their offenses are going to, is up-tempo spread offenses. I think that helps USF in this game. I think that'll help them with a quarterback like Brandon Doty. We saw what they were able to do against a team like Memphis, where they're in Paxton Lynch, where they're able to kind of stay in that game. I think if their offense can continue to grind it out, get those first downs we talked about with Marlon Mack, Quentin Flowers doesn't turn the ball over, I think this is a very close game. This is huge for USF. If they get that 9th win, they get to take that big step going into next season and say, listen, we're right there. It's in Miami. That's a hotbed of recruiting. I'm sure Willie Taggart would love to continue to kind of get those top players. I like USF in this game. I think one of the things to watch, as you mentioned, is Brandon Doty. Brandon Doty, a Florida kid, was not heavily recruited by really any of the top big programs, decided to go to Western Kentucky to follow Jeff Brom, went there and had success. I like USF, but this is going to be a close game, I think.
And this is a big bowl for USF. This is one they wanted.
Yes.
For all the talk that maybe they would play at home in St. Pete or even in a Cure Bowl, they wanted this bowl in Miami because of what you said. It's recruiting. It's a chance for USF to kind of put a mark in there. This is USF's first bowl game since 2010, and the offense this year doubled their points total from last year, points per game average. I mean, this is a different USF team. This is a USF team. When the season started, the talk was, will Willie Taggart even make it to the UCF game? Next thing you know, he's signed an extension because he's now being talked about in these other jobs.
Yes.
So it's a huge turnaround for USF, but this is a huge test for them. And Western Kentucky, I think, is one of those unheralded programs out there. I'm going with the Hilltoppers just because I think that offense is so spectacular, but I think USF will make it a little closer than maybe people think just by knowing what Western Kentucky can do with the ball. Final game involving a state team in a bowl, the Peach Bowl, a New Year's Eve lunchtime kickoff, 12 noon on ESPN. So if you're at work, figure out a way to watch it on your laptop or your phone, or lock yourself in the office if you're so lucky. Houston comes into this game. They are the Group of 5 representative, a remarkable first year under Coach Tom Herman. You had them 89th, I think, heading into the year. And I'm teasing you because it's fun to point out. But I mean, this is a team that we expected this, but we didn't expect it this year. We expected it 2 to 3 years maybe down the line, him bringing in his offense and turning things around. Greg Ward Jr., a big part of how this has worked for them. Over 2,500 yards passing, over almost 1,200 yards rushing. He's combined passing and rushing touchdowns for 35. DeMarcus Ayers is his top target. And Houston, if they have a strength on D, and it's not one of their strengths, is that they are strong against the run. They were able to shut down Navy, force Navy to go through the air. Florida State, we know about this team. This is a team that is setting itself up for a national title run in 2016. They're loaded. This is a game for Sean McGuire to try and prove that he should be a guy that is considered for the quarterback role next year, even with some guys coming up, redshirt freshmen and freshmen coming in. This is another chance for him to keep building up his resume, why he should be there. And Dalvin Cook is a mad running back because he was 7th in Heisman Trophy. Dalvin Cook, 7th in Heisman Trophy voting. It just shows you that he did not get the respect I felt that he deserved. He is a game breaker, a game changer type running back. So this Florida State team, yeah, I think they're coming in this game motivated for a lot of things. And even though some people say, oh, well, it's just Houston, I think Florida State's coming in with something to prove. Dalvin Cook is coming with something to prove. But this should be an interesting test between, again, you have the Houston offense and Florida State's offense, which is much more controlled, much slower paced. I think one of the slowest paced offenses out there, and in Houston, which is obviously the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Herman's done an amazing job, as you were talking about, with Houston. Able to come in there. Really, he's in my mind kind of a quarterback whisperer, so to speak. He did a great job at Ohio State last year, obviously with 3 quarterbacks. What he was able to do there, he did a great job with Greg Ward. We were able to see Ward towards the end of last year in that UCF game. Almost brought Houston back to beat UCF in that game last year. Greg Ward has really grown as a quarterback this year. I think their offense can put up a bunch of points. This isn't a game where everyone should just think Florida State's going to win easily. I think Houston has a legitimate shot to win this game. I mean, I think if they can get some turnovers and they can limit Dalvin Cook, if they can keep him from having that big play, if they keep him, contained in front of them, the defenders, I think they've got a good shot. And I think, again, they have to cause mistakes. They have to make Sean McGuire make bad decisions, throw some picks, and really kind of keep this game close, because I think that's the only way that Houston wins this game.
Yeah, and I think it does come down to that run D. And I said, if Houston has anything that they're somewhat strong in, it is slowing down a rushing offense. But to me, and my pick is Florida State, because I just think Dalvin Cook is too much. And the Florida State defense will be one of the better, if not the best defenses Houston will face this season. So they'll get a test on that end. But I'm going Florida State, but again, like you said, probably a little closer than people think.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at Dalvin Cook, I mean, I think you think about guys who are going to have chips on their shoulder going into next season. Dalvin Cook's going to have a humongous chip on his shoulder. I know, because he wanted to show, he thought he should have been in that Heisman discussion at the very end. Him and Leonard Fournette are going to be 2 guys next year you don't want to face, because I think they're going to use that and motivate them in the offseason. And obviously they both have games, so they're going to try to see what they can do going into next year.
And the New Year's Six Bowl, the 3 bowls we're still to talk about now are on New Year's Day, which is, it makes sense on that one, even though the Peach Bowl was not. Rose Bowl takes place. The granddaddy of them all, Iowa Stanford. This takes place New Year's Day at 5 p.m. on ESPN. Iowa looking for its first Rose Bowl win since 1959. We weren't even young kids then. That's a long time ago. Stanford this year, the key for them is to hold opponents under 200 yards rushing. They're 1-2 when teams rush over 200 yards against them. Iowa can run the ball. They have 7 games this year over 200 yards rushing. Jordan Canzeri is the key, how he recovers from an ankle injury that he suffered against Michigan State, where Iowa gained just 52 yards on the ground. And these are 2 teams that come in this game. Obviously, Stanford, a team probably felt like they could have been in a playoff discussion. They win the Pac-12, but that loss to Northwestern lingered. Notre Dame beat them on a last-second No, they didn't. But they lost to Oregon. Mm-hmm. But they beat Notre Dame on the last-second field goal to kind of set themselves up as that team, that outsider team, could not get into the mix. Iowa, of course, that drive that everybody in Iowa knows about now with Michigan State to win that Big Ten title game, knock Iowa down, their first loss of the year. But they go in this game 12-1. A team you didn't expect here, and a team that you probably did as the season went on in Stanford. This is the proving ground for Iowa. You're 12-1. You lost the one game that people noticed in Michigan State. If you lose to Stanford, then people will put all sorts of holes in your accomplishments this year. If you're able to knock off Stanford, then Iowa, you can pound the chest a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the Big Ten, as much as Big Ten officials will, won't say that they're looking at these things, they are. They want their conference to show that they're the best, and so they want to win these games. So you send a team like Iowa out there, a team that was, in the college football playoff top 4 for a couple weeks, just happened to losing to Michigan State on that drive really kind of hurts them as well. They're facing a Stanford team, though, again, we talked about chips on the shoulder. Stanford might have a little bit of that as well. We were the Pac-12 championship. We should be in, the college football playoff discussion. We're not. We're playing in our home state. We're playing against a team that's got to come out here that, no one has given any sort of respect for. I think Stanford's going to win this game. I think Stanford really feels the need to do it. Christian McCaffrey, again, didn't get the Heisman, was second, but, again, a guy who can really change things, a guy who's back next year, to think about that, is a guy who's the all-around, jack-of-all-trades type of player with his rushing ability and his kick returns. I like Stanford in this game. I think it's going to be one of those games, like a grind-out game that you expect from a Big Ten, Pac-12 matchup.
Derrick Henry, all credit to him. He did not deserve the Heisman, but if you put Christian McCaffrey and what he did on Alabama, on Ohio State, on any team, the numbers he was able to put up. If anybody saw what he did in the Pac-12 title game, running the ball, throwing the ball, catching the ball, returning the ball, and he did this week in, week out. His yards per total game just blew records away, and we're better than anybody else out there. Christian McCaffrey, if you haven't seen him yet, you'll see him now, and you'll see why people were gushing over him. He's a special talent. He's the difference in this game because everything he can do. He was the difference in the game against USC. He's the difference in this one.
Yeah, and you think about it. Yeah, it's great to have touches as a running back, but when you also are returning kicks, when you're doing a little bit of everything in that offense, I think you have more touches on the ball, more opportunities to either have success or make mistakes, and he was able to take advantage and have success in those situations.
Yeah, so I'm going with Stanford also. Sugar Bowl. That is January 1st at night, 8:30 down on the Bayou in New Orleans. Oklahoma State, Ole Miss. Ole Miss in a New Year's Six Bowl for the second straight year, but they probably don't want to talk about their first New Year's Six Bowl. It was a 42-3 loss at TCU last year. Oklahoma State, they come into this one. They've won 4 of their last 5 bowl games. This is a statement game for them. An interesting matchup to watch is Emmanuel Ogbah, the Oklahoma State pass rusher, going up against Laramie Tunsil for Ole Miss, an offensive tackle. That is a future NFL matchup taking place in this game. Interesting fact, the SEC has lost the last 4 Sugar Bowls that they have participated in. So for all of the SEC boisterous talk, they've struggled in their bowl game the last 4 times out that they've been in it. This is an Ole Miss team that has shown signs of greatness. They beat Alabama. They won some other games, but then you have the loss to Memphis and the loss to Florida and question marks there. And you have an Oklahoma State team which probably does not get the credit it deserves. This is a powerful offensive team and a team that was this close from being in the playoff themselves.
Yeah, and I think the SEC is going to lose the 5th Sugar Bowl because I think Oklahoma State's going to win this game. I think Mason Randolph, Oklahoma State quarterback, if he's healthy and it looks like he might be by the time this game goes off, I think they've got an opportunity. Listen, this is going to be, again, we talk about offenses. This is going to be a good offensive battle as well. But I think you look at what Ole Miss is going through. Robert Kadichi, who is obviously one of the better defensive players in the country, he's going through his off-the-field problems that we had this week. That's a distraction. Anytime a coach has to deal with these distractions, those are things you have to wonder, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Do I have to suspend him? Questions are going to follow them around. Those kind of distractions you don't want going into this game. I like Oklahoma State. This is a team, Oklahoma State, that next year returns a lot of these same players and talent. Could be right just where they're at, again, coming out next year.
I have to agree with you. There won't be any SEC chants going on New Year's night in New Orleans. It's going to be SEC because you're going to lose. Oklahoma State wins this one. Fiesta Bowl takes place on January 1st at 1 p.m. It is on ESPN. And I'll tell you, this is a game a lot of people in the Midwest are looking forward to. Ohio State and Notre Dame, 2 teams that probably don't want to be here. But now that they're here, you have to think that they're going to want to beat each other. This is not a yearly rivalry, but there is certainly a rivalry between the 2 programs. Ohio State, the unanimous #1 team coming into the year, they struggled in their first 10 wins, if you can say struggle in 10 wins. Lost to Michigan State, and that was their season. Came back, blew out Michigan, of course, in their final game. Notre Dame, so close. The field goal I mentioned earlier from Stanford probably kept them out of the playoff, probably let Oklahoma in. The Buckeyes defense has allowed more than 17 points just twice in the last 11 games. After they struggled against Michigan State, they ran over Michigan's run defense that I earlier today was in the show was crediting and patting on the back. 369 yards rushing in that game, 5 touchdowns. The key for Notre Dame in this one, to me, is utilizing Will Fuller, their star receiver who's coming back next year. 56 catches, 13 scores. He averages over 20 yards per catch. If you're going to do something against Ohio State D, if you can get him involved, I think you have a chance for that. But this game, and this is going to be a highly watched game. This is going to be a big game between Ohio State and Notre Dame. And I think that the winner of this game is whichever team shows up and wants to win it. Because you're looking at an Ohio State team that did not expect to be here. They have a 1 3-point loss, Michigan State. They're out. Reminiscent a bit of Urban Meyer in 2009 when Florida Gators were 12-0 through the season, lost Alabama in the SEC title game, but came back and blew out Cincinnati in the Sugar Bowl. Do they bounce back, or do they not want to be there? And a Notre Dame team who thought that they were going to be in the playoff, and now they have to get themselves.
And you talk about storylines with this game. I mean, there's so many that you're here in the next couple of weeks. Urban Meyer, former Notre Dame coach, years and years ago, when Notre Dame, when the situation with Lou Holtz happened and he left and Bob Davie was fired eventually, Urban Meyer's name was there. Before he took the Florida job, Notre Dame had guys on the plane ready to go get Urban Meyer, and Florida came in and got him. So there's a little bit of that, and Urban Meyer always credits former Notre Dame coach Lou Holtz as one of his better mentors, guy that he really turns to ask for advice. And as you mentioned that game with Florida and Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken, that was Cincinnati team that was coached by Brian Kelly, and Kelly left to take the Notre Dame job, and players were upset, and then he didn't coach in that game. So I think, again, there's a lot of good storylines in this game, but as you mentioned, both these two teams they wanted to be bigger, higher things to accomplish. But I think, again, this is still a big game for them to both have opportunities anytime you're playing in a New Year's Six game. This is a tough one to pick. I mean, you think about it, because both these teams have done a pretty good job this year. Notre Dame's gone through its share of injuries, really kind of been banged up. And again, Ohio State, a lot of these guys you're seeing, the Joey Bosa's, the Ezekiel Elliott's, Cardale Jones, these guys aren't going to be here next year. They're going to move on. So I think this is going to be a close game. I think Ohio State pulls out the win. I mean, I know that my family will hate me for Christmas, and I'll probably get coal in my stocking. But this is a game that I think Ohio State at the very end will find a way to win. But I think it's going to be a close game because I think both these two coaches are really good coaches.
And you talk about Bosa and Elliott and all those guys. They do have one foot in the NFL. The question will be, do they want to go out on a high note, or have they already checked out? And I think because it's Notre Dame, they don't check out necessarily. And they want to be able to prove, we know we're not in the playoff. But if they can do a number on Notre Dame, then at least people say, well, you know what? That was a great football team. They slipped up once. They can still they can't get back what they wanted, but they can still get a little bit of that back.
And I think some of the things to watch too are Chris Ash, the defensive coordinator for Ohio State, took the job at Rutgers. He's not going to be coaching in this game. I don't think he's coaching in this game.
He is coaching in the game.
Oh, he is coaching the game? So there you go. So you have a guy who's already 1 foot out the door a little bit. It's just, do they want to play up for him and kind of give him come out with a win?
And no Adolphus Washington, which will be a big hole in the middle.
Which will be a big hole for the middle.
But I agree. I'm taking Ohio State in this game.
Close game.
But if Ohio State doesn't want to show up, then Notre Dame wins it. But I think if both teams show up, Ohio
I don't
State,
think Urban's going to let this team not show up.
Not against
Notre Dame. I think this means they'll know real quickly this week that this game means a lot to him.
If this is Ohio State-Houston, I'm taking Houston. But if it's Ohio State-Notre Dame, I'm taking the Buckeyes. Now it is time to talk playoffs. The Orange Bowl kicks off playoffs on December 31st. 4 p.m. start down in Miami. Clemson, number 1 in the country. Oklahoma, number 4. You'll be at this game, and you'll be down there leading up to it. Sooners come into this game. Since their loss to Texas, they have been on fire. Over 500 yards offense in each of those 7 games. They are plus 12 in the turnover margin, and Clemson comes in this game negative in the turnover margin. Something to watch there. Deshaun Watson has thrown for 260 yards or more in 8 of his last 9 games. The only game he didn't, they beat Miami 58-0, so he really didn't need to throw the ball. I've been questioning Clemson throughout the year, but watching Clemson against North Carolina, Deshaun Watson is the reason they beat North Carolina because when the team struggled early, he was able to put that team on his back and really, to me, showcased even more so that the immense talent he has to be able to get them through that early parts of that game to where they were able to win it at the end with some help with the officials maybe a little bit at the end to not give North Carolina a chance to tie it up. But Deshaun Watson is the real deal, but so is Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield, here's a guy, again, two-time walk-on, if you think about it. Walked on at Texas Tech, walked on at Oklahoma, has done an amazing job, won the starting job, did an amazing job in Lincoln Riley, new offensive coordinator's offense. Put up a bunch of numbers, was in the Heisman discussion for a while, ended up finishing, I think, somewhere, I don't know if it was 8th or 9th, but somewhere in that range. A guy who really makes this offense go. This team, to me, Oklahoma, really kind of resembles Ohio State of last year. We talk about a team that lost early, a loss that was kind of inexplicable. How can you lose this game? But then took that loss and really kind of spun it around and really kind of took advantage of it. And now they're putting up a lot of yards, a lot of points. They went through really a gauntlet towards the end, beating a Baylor, beating a TCU, beating Oklahoma State, all ranked teams to get to where they're at right now. I think Bob Stoops did a great job, and a job that could have gone sideways. 8 new assistant coaches, obviously, to take that and go into the playoff situation. I think that's one. It's great. I think the defense is good as well. I like what Clemson's done. I think Deshaun Watson, obviously, as you mentioned, is the guy. He's going to be amazing next year. You think about having a year under his belt. I like Oklahoma in this game. I think Oklahoma's just the hot team right now, and I think they built this. Bob Stoops built this team to handle teams like Baylor and TCU, explosive offensive teams. So I think they can handle Deshaun Watson, and I think they'll be able to handle Clemson's offense.
If anybody's watched our shows all year long, and hopefully you have, I've been behind Oklahoma most of the year. Even when they lost to Texas, I was a believer in them. They're going to give up yards to Clemson, but they're going to take advantage of Clemson being aggressive, because Clemson will make mistakes. It comes as part of their offense. Oklahoma takes advantage of that, and I have Oklahoma beating Clemson in this one.
And don't, again, Bob Stoops is a guy who's big game Bob and knows what it's like. I mean, he's coached in some national championships. He won a national championship. So he's been in those big games. He knows what this is going to be like. Dabo Swinney is an excellent coach, done an amazing job. I think, you might see a little bit of that, getting out-coached a little bit in this game for some of that.
I hope his punter doesn't do anything to make him yell at him for 10 minutes again.
No, let's hope not.
Class act, Dabo. The last playoff game at Cotton Bowl, Alabama, number 2 in the country, at number 3, Michigan State, December 31st, 8 p.m. ESPN. And as long as I'm patting myself on the back, let's go back to early in the year. Alabama loses to Ole Miss at home. Ole Miss 5 turnovers by the Crimson Tide. Ole Miss offense runs up and down the field on them, leads the game a couple times by 20, 21 points. Everybody the next day was writing the obituary for the Alabama football program. It was a get say. It was like, oh, they're done. Nick Saban's done. This team done. And I came in here to you and I said, Alabama is still going to play for the SEC title. They're still going to be here. This is a team that bounced back from that loss, and I think they got smart, and it maybe why Lane Kiffin had maybe some issues there, but Nick Saban said, we're going to run this offense on the backs of Derrick Henry, and they did, and he forgot about Derrick Henry last year in the game against Ohio State. He forgot about Derrick Henry earlier in the season, but they have run with Derrick Henry. Alabama's in this game because of Derrick Henry's ability to control the ball in offense and that amazing defense. And, of course, Michigan State. What can you say about the Spartans with a team? Connor Cook, a great quarterback for them, a veteran quarterback, misses their biggest game of the year. They're still, Mark D'Antonio, able to put together a great coaching package, knock off Ohio State. You beat the defending national champion in their home stadium by 3 points. Then knock off Iowa with a drive to just a monumental drive to win that game. Everybody, just like last year, Ohio State, Alabama, everybody jumping to put Alabama as big favorites in this game. But you look at that Michigan State team, and this is an experienced team, it is a smart team, and it is a well-coached team. They may not have the athletes pound per pound as Alabama does, but this is, Mark D'Antonio might be the most underrated coach in college football, and he's going to get a chance to prove his ability. His team will have a chance to prove their ability in this game against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said D'Antonio is one of the most underrated coaches. Doesn't get enough credit for what he's been able to do. Maybe it's because he's not a personality. We're so used to having coaching personalities, the Steve Spurriers and
the Nick Saban.
The Nick Saban.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. But again, he's a guy who's done an amazing job. when he's going with Michigan State. You talked about Alabama. We all know that Alabama wasn't going to go away. This is an Alabama team that did struggle this year, though. Didn't really look to be as dominant as people thought they were going to be. I think there were some issues on offense. I don't think Jake Coker really has looked comfortable. Even in the SEC championship game, I felt at times Florida was able to get to him, make him, take sacks or make a couple of mistakes here or there. They still have the weapons going on here. What I'm interested in this game is, listen, Kirby Smart, the longtime Alabama defensive coordinator, is taking the job at Georgia, but he's sticking around. So Nick Saban already hires his next year's defensive coordinator, and Jeremy Pruitt, who's around as well. They're both sharing an office. I'm wondering how much that of a distraction is going to be for the defense. I know Nick Saban will try not to let that happen. He's pretty good at kind of compartmentalizing things like that as well. I know Derrick Henry, I'm a little leery. Derrick Henry spent a lot of time after winning the Heisman doing radio, TV, all that. That's a lot of that falls on that guy. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back on this. This is a
plus
game.
Plus the 90-some carries the last
plus
two
the 90-some
games.
carries he's had. I don't think that's going to be so much an issue. I think when I look at these two teams, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. This is going to be very familiar of an old SEC or old Big Ten type showdown. You're not going to see a lot of points being put up in this game. And to be honest with you, I've been torn which way to go on this because, again, I don't think any of these teams are coming to this game looking like a dominant team that you expect to see out of them. But having talked to some of the Alabama players, that loss last year to Ohio State in the playoff stung really bad. And they still remember that. When I asked about that, a lot of these guys said, listen, I don't want this to happen again. I don't want that feeling again. I'm going to take Alabama, but by a very slight margin over Michigan State.
I'm taking Michigan State because I believe that D'Antonio has the ability to do magical things if you give him enough time. He's going to have a month to prepare for this Alabama offense. And if there's one thing that you can do against Alabama, is it takes a mobile quarterback, but you can throw the ball. Connor Cook, maybe not a mobile quarterback, but he can throw the ball. If you're going to be Alabama, you got to do it in the secondary. You're not going to beat him in the trenches. I think he'll be able to come up with a plan on offense to score just enough points, and you'll see that defense. They shut down Ezekiel Elliott, and they made Ohio State crazy and forget to run the ball. They can do the same thing to Lane Kiffin in Alabama. Shut down Derrick Henry early. Alabama panics. If you put the game in Jake Coker's hands, then you have a chance to win this game. I'm taking Michigan State. I'm going out on a limb, but I feel that preparation time, and as you said, Alabama, they're coming in here flying. Everybody sees them as number 2 team, but they've struggled at times. Even against Florida, against Florida, they struggled. Against Auburn, they've struggled at times. They're beatable, and I think Michigan State with the right plan can do it.
And I think, again, you mentioned, if Derrick Henry with the Heisman and all the stuff that goes along with the Heisman, if he's worn out, if he comes in this game, because he's been spread thin, I think that's going to hurt them because, again, even a guy had 90 carries the last 2 games and he's had some time off, you still have to be focused on what's going on. It's hard. Your time demand is you go to these games, you're in media day, you got to do all the media events. Everyone talks to Derrick Henry. No offense to Michigan State. They're all going to want to talk to Derrick Henry. And that's the stuff that sometimes can get on a guy and eventually can kind of, weigh on his shoulders. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can get through that. That's why I have it as a slight margin because I just don't think this is going to be a dominating performance by any of these two teams. I think they're going to slug it out, and it's going to be one in the trenches.
40 bowls in 15 days.
Did we do all 40? Oh, no, we just did.
No, we didn't. I don't want to do a quick count.
Rapid fire, let's go.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We did 13 bowls. We made picks in each one, but 40 bowls in 15 days is the most wonderful time of the year. It's just almost every night you're going to have a game on. You can watch games during the day.
Yes. It is a good time. And these kids, one of the things, as much as we talk about how too many bowl games, and you mentioned before, with these kids, this is, when you've covered a bowl game, you get to see sometimes some of the things you don't normally see. You've seen the kids go down to Disney and seen the players riding the roller coasters and having fun. This is really an opportunity for them to kind of unload a little bit, release some steam. A lot of these teams, coaches will want this to say it's a business trip. We're all business. But these kids, this is a reward for them. And it's a reward for the coaches and their families. There are a lot of coaches' families that take advantage of the bowl games and they go out and have a little bit of fun. So it's a good time. It's a great time to kind of see some of these good stories.
And we spend a lot of time talking about the big ones, obviously the playoffs in year 6. But it's the other ones sometimes that are the most fun to watch because the guys are just so happy to be there. And like I said, it is a reward for a season. And if you don't like 40 bowls, then don't watch 40 bowls. But I'm going to watch 40 bowls, and you're going to watch 40 bowls because we're going to try it. But it's called. If you don't like it, that's fine. But for the kids, and for kids that go to a school like Central Michigan or a MAC school or a Sun Belt school, they they don't get treated like this.
Who gets
from
to
week
go to the
week.
Bahamas?
Yeah.
There's some of these kids who've never been out of the United States. They get to go to the Bahamas for a bowl game. I mean, what's better than that? So
You get to be treated well for a week,
It's
and then you
fun.
get a national TV game.
it's fun, and like I said, then we finish off with, well, we don't finish off, but we finish off with the playoff, and then you get the national championship on the 12th.
And we will be back with you in 2016. We will look back at all 40 bowls and tell you, but we will look back on the bowl season the week after it happens, heading into the national title game. We'll preview the national title game then. But for now, happy holidays, a happy new year, a happy bowl watching from us. For Matt Murschel, I'm Brant Parsons. We will see you in 2016 at OrlandoSentinel.com.
Happy holidays.
Go Bulls.